Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. We're doing something different today. You can see that you can't see my face. After the impressive victory at Stirling Bridge, William Wallace led a semi-successful raid into Northern England. To be more precise, Northumberland and Cumbria. He managed to raise a lot of income from this war. However, he failed to sack major settlements like Carlisle, Alnwick or Newcastle, but to cope with this he just burned the areas around Alnwick and Newcastle. They raided as far as Cockermouth, real place, and around 700 villages are said to have been burned in this campaign. In response to this, Edward Longshanks, determined to crush the Scottish and had arrived from his campaigns in Flanders in the spring of 1298, he raised an army of around 15,000 men. Within this was 2,500 mounted knights and 12,500 infantrymen. Many of these were veterans from the campaigns in France, and also Welsh longwomen and also Irish troops. Wallace was extremely outnumbered, so to combat this he employed yet another guerrilla warfare tactic: hit and run and avoiding pitched battles. They also did a scorched earth campaign to block the paths of the English armies and reduce resources for the English to be able to use to attempt to starve them out or to buy them more time. Since 15,000 men was a large army at this time, they'd be burning through a lot of food and resources. In response to this, Edward, who had mustered his army at Roxburgh, organised seaborne supplies to support his forces as they marched north to Edinburgh. Wallace's strategy was very nearly successful, and shortages of supplies drove Edward's army to the brink of mutiny. However, Wallace planned a nighttime attack on Edward's army near Kirkliston, just northwest of Edinburgh, but he was betrayed by two Scottish noblemen who resented Wallace's rise to power. He had now little choice but to face the English in battle before they reached Stirling. At the battle site chosen, the terrain was in favour of the Scots. The Scots could use an area of seemingly impassable marshy ground to protect the front. They'd also had occupied a strong position on the hillside south of the town. Edward was advancing through central Scotland and on the very verge of abandoning the pursuit when, July 21st, he learned that Wallace's army was encamped nearby, around Falkirk near the River Carron. Wallace was said to have around 5,000 men and around 1,000 mounted knights. Wallace divided the Scottish army into 4 large squadrons or circular battle formations. Each squadron was composed of foot soldiers, but by this time squadrons were stationary and would not move. They had a lot of spikes and pikes poking out, horses can't break through, they are very weak to arrow fire without support. Foreshadowing. Between the squadrons, Wallace placed his archers, and a body of mounted men under the command of John the 3rd Comyn stood in reserve. It was probably hoped that the English cavalry would just plunge himself into the marsh, but this isn't some random king or commander. This was Edward Longshanks. He had fought at crusades in France, Ireland, Wales. He knew how to fight a guerrilla campaign. He knew how to combat a guerrilla campaign. Wallace, according to myths, there was no serious precautions to take care of the Scottish flanks, which was a huge mistake, or for this video, the second mistake. In any case, Wallace's intent was to shatter the English charge, trusting in the squadrons. Also, according to myths, William Wallace is said to have said, "I have brought you to the ring, now dance if you can." The English first line under Earl Marsh Roger Bigod, the Earl of Hereford and Lincoln, tried to march through the marsh in vain, and then rode round at its western flanks. The second line, commanded by Anthony Beck, the Bishop of Durham, quickly circumvented the marsh to the east and then halted to await the arrival of the third line under the king. The undisciplined barons in Beck's formation grew impatient and reportedly said, "'Tis not for thee, Bishop, to teach us of war, go say mass," and charged the nearest squadron, which repulsed them with heavy losses. The Earls on the left, with their flank march now complete, charged Wallace's squadrons, but, it resulted in the same result. The Scottish cavalry was composed largely of noblemen, whose allegiance to Wallace was questionable. Many of them had English estates or relatives who were hostages in Edward's army, in Edward's hands. Third mistake, they deserted before the English Notable exceptions were men such as Sir John de Graham, Wallace's chief lieutenant, and Sir John Stewart, both of whom would remain to fight and die with the archers and spearmen. Edward, who had now joined the bishop in the English centre, preemptively ordered the cavalry to stand fast Taught by experience fighting against masked pikemen in the Welsh wars, Edward brought up the archers. A deadly rain of arrows soon caused gaps to appear in the chaos in the close ranks of the Skeltrons. And then the chronicler Walter of Gisborough reports that the English army stood at a distance and showered the immobile Skeltrons with stones. After sufficient preparation, the English cavalry assaulted. The weakened and disorganised Scots gave way, and they began to flee into nearby forests. About a third of Wallace's army had perished. Wallace retreated northwards with the survivors, burning Stirling and Perth as he went. Edward followed and restored the castle and towns, but was unable to maintain his forces in Scotland. He returned south, reaching Carlisle on September the 8th, 1298. Although Edward failed to subdue the rest of Scotland, Wallace's military reputation was ruined. Wallace went back to fight in a guerrilla campaign. He eventually stepped down from guardianship of Scotland in December and went off into France and Italy to beg for aid against the English, but no aid would come. During this time, he was succeeded by Robert the Bruce and John Comyn III, the one who ran away in battle and also later would be killed by Robert the Bruce. Wallace, upon returning to Scotland, re-engaged in a guerrilla warfare against England with his own band. He was relentlessly pursued by English forces, who finally captured him near Glasgow in 1305. After he was handed over to the English, he probably knew he wasn't going to live much longer. However, he wasn't killed right away. He was forced to travel to near 400 miles to London for a trial. This was never intended to be a fair trial because it's medieval England and also the outcome was already decided. Edward. Famously, during this trial, Wallace is said to have argued he could not be a traitor to Edward because he was never a subject of Edward, and also he may have not even signed the Ragman roll. Maybe, maybe not, we don't know. If Wallace was a nobleman, he may have, which would counteract that, but if we don't know. But just forget I said that, okay? I'll keep it in the video, but forget I said that. On the 12th of August, 1305, he was found guilty of treason and sentenced to death. Wallace would be hung, drawn and quartered. He was dragged naked by a horse to his place of execution in Smithfield. He was hanged, but was cut down before suffocating. After this, he would be cut open and his insides were ripped out of him. And then burned. His head would then be cut off and his body would be divided and sent around British Isles.